Welcome to Team Building Cultures, the podcast designed to deliver tools and tips for improving team communication, collaboration, and fostering a culture where teams thrive. Now, here's your host, Beverly Hathorn, owner of Strategic HR Consultants.
Hello, listeners, and thank you so much for joining me for another episode of Team Building Cultures. I am your host, Beverly Hathorn, owner of Strategic HR Consultants. Today, I'm going to be speaking with Mr. Eric Stone. Really excited to speak with Eric today. Eric has a passion for business, and that led him to an influential 26-year career at the iconic rental car company Enterprise Holdings. And there, he quickly became one of the most decorated regional vice presidents in the company's history. His ability to connect and motivate employees from all different generations and demographics allowed his team to sustain top level results and maintain a culture of pride. Eric attributes much of his success to his ability to create, ignite, and sustain a high performance culture, one that enabled him to lead his teams through challenges like 9/11, the Great Recession, the recent COVID 19 pandemic, and the Great Resignation, along with an extraordinary ability to adapt to the unexpected and help others do the same. These are some of the qualities that have helped Eric become successful. He retired from Enterprise in 2018 and founded Clear Path Ventures, which specializes in guiding youth professionals and businesses as they navigate their path to success. Eric has served on the boards of multiple community focused nonprofits, which focus on providing strategies and resources to close the opportunity gap for marginalized groups. Wonderful. And so today, Eric's going to talk to us about the 5 key factors of employee engagement, the hourglass approach, creating culture carriers, and hiring for cultural match. So, this is going to be a great conversation. Thank you so much, Eric, for joining us today. I'm looking forward to chatting with you and learning more.
Well, Beverly, honored to be on and have an opportunity to be on your podcast, and certainly get comfortable and familiar with all of your guests all over the place. So I'm really excited about the opportunity.
Yeah, this is gonna be great. So tell me a little bit about culture and how you go about establishing a culture and some of the things that you've done, to create such a viable culture.
For me, it was always the simplest way to start was with your team. So it was always employees first. And you mentioned the 5 factors. Everyone has their own factors. For me, these factors not only cross generational perspectives, they cross ethnicity and background. It doesn't matter who you are, what generation you're from, or where you were brought up. These are 5 critical components that are going to help you engage. And so for me, it always started with what within your organization are you doing to create a strong relationship with your team? That's top to bottom. And so, what are all those things from the onboarding all the way through hire to retire type of approach? But what are those 2 to 3 things that you do throughout your organization? The second is really about clear communication of expectations and goals. So, very similar. What are those settings? How often are you meeting? And in what setting do you meet to ensure that everybody within an organization, whatever your initiative is, that it's getting understood and explained throughout? For communication, I always used an ABC approach, which was, make sure you're amplifying the message when it must be amplified, finding ways to buffer that communication where something might seem bigger than it is, synthesize it and buffer it to avoid some distraction, or C, just kind of convey the information and pass it on. The third is just training, coaching, development, giving your team the right information in order to achieve the desired outcome. And again, that goes from day one all the way through. A lot of organizations have a pretty good onboarding, but then the honeymoon slowly fizzles out. Number 4, personal and professional development. How are they growing personally and professionally? What are those things that can be done not only at work, but executed at home to help people feel really, I guess you'd call it, well, we don't call it, kind of reducing that anxiety and stress that can sometimes happen, whether it's financial stress or the stress of your typical day-to-day operations. And then, of course, you got to reward. So, what are you doing within your organization? Recognizing effort, but rewarding excellence. And not only the topics you reward, because it should be a diverse mix of things that you're going to reward, but certainly how many categories, how often do you review them? Is it the right reward? And so, those are a whole bunch of things that usually the first step is designing an engagement strategy.
Gotcha. Those are all like my top five actually. And I'm glad that you started with relationships because that's the top of the heap as far as I'm concerned, because you're unable to communicate thoroughly and effectively without a good relationship with your teams. And that doesn't mean that, at least from my perspective, you don't have to be their best friend, but you do need to know the people on another level, the people that you work with, your both your peers and the people who report to you, as well as your next level. You need to understand their priorities and their preferences and where they plan to go in the working world, and some of the things that are going on in their personal life, whatever it is that they want to share. But once you build that foundational relationship base, then that does help, in my opinion, help all the other things just kind of fall into place. And I really like what you said about clear communication, because I may be thinking that I'm doing a great job, but you may not be so well convinced, and it depends on how I interpreted my job responsibilities and, my commitment and my level of importance or impact to the organization or the business, how I interpreted that, and if you deliver as my leader, if you deliver that clearly to me and help me understand, then I should be able to perform, to the expectations that, have been outlined for me.
Well,
So, really
you mentioned
like all of
trust.
those.
Yeah, you mentioned, trust is the relationship part. And so you want unique relationships, or unique results, you better have unique relationships. The relationships build trust. Trust allows belief
Mhm.
to be even stronger. Stronger belief equals really good behaviors that they can execute. Great behaviors over an extended period of time create a great experience. Communication, the second you're kind of going into again was, you know, there are so many, the thing that tends to go quickly through an organization is gossip. That's the one thing that communicates faster than anything. And you've got to find a way to figure out what those three priorities are within an organization. And you'll be surprised when you start asking, what are your three priorities? You get a variety of different answers.
Yeah, exactly. So, we need to make sure that we're on the same page. So yeah, those are all really great, relationships, clear communication, train and coach and develop. And I would add, along with that, give your teams the tools that they need to be successful, give them everything that they need. Personal and professional development. Maybe they might not want to stay where they are for the rest of their working career. They may have goals and dreams, and once you go back to building those relationships, you'll help discover those and then help people move along on those paths. And then we definitely got a reward. And rewards get a little tricky because sometimes it tends in groups that the same people get rewarded all the time. So, we want to be cognizant of that and then make sure that that is not a constant. If people aren't being rewarded, maybe we need to do something to find out what we can do to help them improve or move along because it's sometimes that can be discouraging. So, yeah, I really like all of those. So you mentioned something else in your bio. You talk about the hourglass approach.
Yeah.
What in the world is that, Eric?
Yeah. It's a simple approach that an organization or a team lead can do when they're trying to kind of build this unique workplace culture. So it always starts, from a visual. I wish I had a true hourglass in front of me, but if you envision the top part of an hourglass is really that listen, observe, and learn. That's from stakeholders, employees, customers, clients. You're pulling all of the information to really get a good understanding of what is going on. You've always got to continually do that in your repertoire. And so as you guide, your hourglass comes out, and that's kind of you're getting all this information, you're gathering your team to commit, and right when the hourglass goes at it where the sand comes out, That is clarity, really the communication part. Those are the priorities of, those are the things that we call them big rock items in business. Those are the things that you are trying to get committed to your entire organization. And once there's clarity, and that's the key, and then the hourglass goes out again. And when it goes out again, it is that reinforcement through training and development. You're taking all of your critical initiatives and you're talking them into employee reviews and feedback sessions. So everybody, I used to call it lather, rinse, repeat. There are no secrets that are supposed to be here. We're all supposed to understand where we're going. Now, on the bottom, you're going to notice where the sand lies. And what that is eventually how you're going to measure your organization's workplace culture. And so in the book, I actually talk about 6 things that you can utilize that will help you get kind of a scorecard of your organizational culture. Now, when you think of an hourglass, there's also could be 2 foundational pillars on each side. One side's going to be mission, vision, values, all of those things that are, kind of why you're in business. And to the other side is going to be your policies and procedures that are going to help you guide your decision making. And so that's kind of the visual of how you can use it. And right when you think you got it, new technology comes in, a pandemic hits, something happens, you turn the hourglass over and you're going to kind of lather, rinse, repeat a similar approach to kind of get the information, understand it, synthesize it, and get it out. Now, it is called an hourglass for a reason. As you'd imagine, in hourglass, the word hourglass is hour, and that is using everybody to come together. It's not an eyeglass that me and you both are wearing, and I had since I was about 10 years old. It's not an eye thing. And so that's a nice, simple approach that everyone can really visualize and understand.
Awesome. Yeah, I really like that analogy of an hourglass. And then I can picture all the things that you're saying, especially the beginning where we talk about gathering the information that we need. As a project manager, that is always where my mind goes first to, who do we need to talk to? Who are the resources? Who has the assets? Who is the biggest stakeholders? Who has a horse in this race, for lack of a better word, and let's get the opinions and the needs and the plans for all these people so that we can get a good start, and then once we get all this information, then we can move forward. So that's a really good analogy, the hourglass approach. Is that I've never heard of that approach, but well, I've heard of that methodology, but I've never heard it called the hourglass approach. So did you coin that for us?
Well, let's say when I was writing the book, I always wanted a metaphor. So the first thing about the metaphor of the book, because it's easily understood. And so the book of building culture, it's a journey. You don't just build it overnight. And so it's a road trip, the whole book, and kind of steps of the road trip. And then I wanted something that would encompass what I tried to do, or try and still continue to do. I didn't use anyone's homework, so I don't know if anyone else has used it. That was something that I came up with to really resonate more specifically with the hour versus I, and I thought it would really catch. It's pretty simple. So yeah.
Okay, well, good job. Because I can definitely remember that. I'm sure that my listeners will be able to remember that. And then, we got a good visual because you gave us an hourglass, and the play on words is hour, HOUR, as opposed to OUR. There you go. Yeah.
Okay, I got to get out of the way. So for anyone who can actually see it, there's a little bit of the model when you see the hourglass from top to bottom. You got the foundations on the left and the right. So it's a little bit of, if you're not listening on the podcast, you're going on the video version, there's a little bit of that 5-step process that we spoke of.
Wonderful. And I really like that it's sort of anchored or kept in line by policies and procedures and method and our vision and values. So, we got to keep that in mind with, what are we here for? What's the plan? What's the bottom line about what we're trying to do here and where we're trying to go? So, and then we're going to temper all of everything that we do to create such a culture. We're going to temper it within those guidelines. Really great analogy, Eric. I like that very much. So tell me a little bit about what you call creating culture carriers.
Yeah. Well, so we've talked about engagement, we've talked about an approach that you can use to build this unique culture, but you can't do it alone, and it is not leadership's job alone or HR's function to try to do this. And so organizations need to figure out, through whether it's their own mentor programs, their leadership groups, whatever it is, you've got to be searching whether they're sought out or selected. There has to be individuals, and I like a lot at the mid-level of the organization to really be those who believe and are part of the message. So what I used to do is I would bring in my management team. So I would have at times up to 50 managers, but we would select by their peers a group of 5 or 6, and you would bring them in every other month, and strategically they would come up with the agenda, and they would kind of tell me what they'd like to discuss, kind of that listen, observe up at the top of the hourglass. And they truly were, so their peers assign them. I get a chance to mentor and coach them as well. They get to really be what's going on in the field. I then take the information with the team, and their role is to get it out to everybody. And so they become culture carriers. So that group of leaders, we called it a think tank. They were part of my culture carriers. We designed certain mentor programs. And what I would challenge every organization, they probably have a mentor program. I would challenge you to say, how deeply is your selection and matchmaking and training of mentees and mentors throughout it? And do you recognize those? And so you will eventually continue to get more and more. So it allows you to scale your organization when you have developed a lot of these culture carriers. So that was really the analogy of, hey, what is a culture carrier? There's those who are going to carry out your message and do it the right way through your vision, values, and your mission.
Awesome. Yeah, get yourself a team of advocates to help you, push this message, and those who already have bought in, and can help you deliver that message with the same enthusiasm that you would, and so that your team members and your employees and peers are more accepting of it. Because I've always said that delivery and presentation is everything. How you deliver a message, and how you present that message is going to have a lot to do with whether you get the buy-in from the people that you really need to buy in, which is everybody. So yeah, that's a really great idea, Eric, to get yourself a group of advocates to help you kind of push and deliver and refine. I would think that those, as you mentioned, those advocates can help you kind of maybe refine your message, and as you deliver it. And again, you've already built those relationships, so you know how to talk to your people because you've
Yeah,
already built those relationships.
I think the key also is to let the team understand how many initiatives come from this group of culture carriers. And so, what we would do, and I recommend organizations do, is all the things that are implemented throughout the organization that have carried some momentum. It's kind of like a wall of fame. These are some of the things,
Mm-hmm.
because people have to understand we are listening. Now, we can't do everything you want. And so, when we listen to 200 employees, 500 employees, not every idea is going to go through, but it's important that they understand, and that's usually where people struggle. Is they'll have an employee opinion survey, a pulse survey, an engagement survey. They get information, and it just kind of sits there, and they
Sits
don't do
there.
much. And if you can say, here are the things we've taken from the survey, from the pulse, from our think tank group, and here's what we've been able to execute, that's the stuff we talk. Communication, you don't keep it a secret. And so that's where a
Mm-hmm.
lot of people can sometimes struggle, is they do present very well, except they presented it once, and you got to do it in the morning, in the afternoon, at night, in the review, in a one-on-one section, in a performance development meeting, at an event, at a town hall. It's got to be a lot of settings for it to truly take hold. There's a famous stat about meetings, and I think after people go to a meeting, I think within 2 days, 90% is forgot about. And the percent they remember, half is wrong. So you've got to really work hard to get the information understood.
I can see that, because a lot of times when people go to meetings, they go begrudgingly sometimes. They don't always want to attend so many meetings. And then particularly if there's no information that immediately impacts me or specifically impacts me, then I sit there most of the time wondering why I'm here. And if I do hear a little something that has something to do with my position or my project or my work, then I may not get it all because I'm not completely tuned in. So, yeah, the communication of that message is critically important, especially when you're when you're delivering information that you've gotten from surveys. Don't ask employees questions you don't want answers to. So when you ask them these questions and they give you this information, be sure to follow through with it and show them where they're following through. Don't make them have to go through and pick pieces and say, oh, that must have come from the survey, or maybe they did it. Tell them, as a result of what we heard you say, we're going to be doing this, or because so many of our employees are, this is an issue, we're going to try this, or, even if you say we're unable to, address a specific issue right now, but we're aware and we'll be working on it. Something you've got to acknowledge the things that come back in those surveys.
Yes.
So we talked a little bit about upfront. We talked a little bit. You mentioned onboarding as one of the critical components of, setting the culture and employee engagement. And we all know that that needs to work and be a continued. As a matter of fact, they should change the name from onboarding to something else. We should be calling it something else because it implies that it's something that'll happen when you immediately first come on. And then after that, you're not going to get this treatment anymore. So, tell us a little bit about hiring for a cultural match and how onboarding and hiring and recruiting plays a part in that.
Well, the best analogy I could give you for what I recommend organizations do is, everyone is pretty good. They know their competency questions. They know the questions, they know the behavioral questions that they're going to do. And I think the thing that organizations really have to hit, I actually just posted it on a LinkedIn today, and it was kind of the character side. So you have the head and the heart. That the head is all the competencies, but remember, some of those competencies are very coachable skills. They don't have to have all of them. They have to be able to be coached on them. But the character matters. And so I'll give you I'll give you 3 questions you could ask about character, and then I'll explain the difference, in my opinion, between match and fit, which is, these are buzzwords. But a simple thing to truly understand about a candidate is, when it's the one thing Elon Musk and I have in common. He asks in every interview that he's involved with, hey, tell me your story. And you're going to get this unprovoked, guided, they run point, they tell you their story, whatever their story is. You are not leading them, guiding them, you're learning. That's the whole key to an interview, is how do you truly get the most truthful answers? Because in an interview, they tend to be at their optimal. You need them at their typical. And that's an art. And so tell me your story loosens them up. And then what you could try to do, I like to see an event that shaped who they are today. I like to learn a little bit about what made them tick, their DNA, the things that they've gone through that have shaped and defined who they are. And then the third one that you could use is really, I call it the pushback questions. It might be a question on customer service, and you say, is the customer always right? And they say, of course. And then you take the opposite side. You say, really? Well, I disagree. And what you're trying to do is see what they're made of. Are they going to compromise? How strong are their beliefs? Are they just trying to give you an answer because they think it's the right answer? So these are character questions. I used to have my executive assistant introduce themselves without saying who they were to every candidate that I would interview. And the reason was, I wanted to see how they would treat my executive assistant or HR manager. And that was a big character test. If they can't treat my team well, how are they going to treat other employees and customers well? So that's that character thing. You got to have your competencies, but you got to really pull and get them to their typical. And when I think of match and fit, I use a clothing analogy. And so I think organizations can get so caught into, I need a size 8 shoe. That's the size of my shoe. I want it to be a size 8. And there's nothing wrong with a size 8 or a 10 or a 12. That's what I want. And I look at it as, you kind of want that blouse or tie that the individual is going to wear. You want something that is going to make everything else pop. It's going to make the shirt stand out, the belt, the tie, the pants, whatever it may be. And so that is the match. It's head and heart. And so for me, those were some of the things that really get to have an understanding of not just their competencies, but what are their values and character about. And so that's what I really mean by that hiring for match.
Such insightful information, Eric. Thank you very much for sharing that. And I am in total alignment with you on that, especially when you mention when during interviews, people are typically at their best. They're at their top. They have practiced, they've rehearsed. They might be a little nervous, but they are ready to go with all their best responses and all their best stories about their working past. And you really just want to know what they're like as a typical person. And I think asking them to tell you their story will kind of just bring them down a little bit, kind of just level them out some, so that because face it, we all like to talk about ourselves. Most people do anyway. So, when you get to, when you get them, kind of relaxed to where they're just kind of talking about themselves, you'll probably glean a lot from who they really are. And then, definitely we know that a lot of skills, most skills can be taught. I need to know about who you are as a person. So that's really great. I especially like where you talk about the pushback questions, where you take the opposite position of whatever they say, because then you'll find out, number one, just how much they really feel about that topic and how committed they are to that topic. And number two, I guess, how much they really know about that particular topic. Are they just giving you, just a boxed answer to what they think that you want to hear, or are they really coming from the heart? So that's all really great information, Eric. So tell us a little bit about what you do for organizations in your business.
So really there's three things that I'll do. So first, I'll do some individual coaching on individuals who are usually team lead or executives who are trying to take their organization to another level. Really, the biggest thing is taking an initiative. And how do I get that initiative, as we've been talking about, through all levels of the employee base without creating confusion, but to get a high peak performance. So high character, high standard, very empathetic, but with high accountability. So there's individuals and or teams that I'll work on and really do both, either individually or for whole business units, and help them design engagement strategies would be most commonly. And then I'll also do a lot of public speaking. So I'll do some keynote speeches to associations, usually with three big things. The most popular, actually, designing your engagement, engaging your workforce. You got 5 generations in the workforce. You got the flexibility debate right now of in-person, remote, and hybrid. How do you bring everything together to get this unbelievable engagement? Great engagement leads to strong business outcomes. So how do you do all that?
So, yes, I particularly like where you talk about the pushback questions, because that kind of gives us an idea of, number one, just how committed the candidate is to what they've just answered, the message that they've just delivered. And number two, it'll give us an idea how much they really know about that. Are they just giving you canned, rehearsed responses, or are they really giving you what's from the heart? So yeah, if we make the whole process from the beginning more about culture match as opposed to culture fit, if we just kind of make the whole thing more about how is this person really going to work in the organization, as opposed to just, he has the degree, he has the experience, he has the skills, let's hire him. So, let's look a little bit more into that. And again, I would like to see whatever you do in onboarding, all that special presentation and all that getting to know people and, taking you around and introducing you. I'd like to see things of a similar nature continue throughout, like at least the first year of an employee's new employee's tenure there. At least the first year, let's spend a lot of time with them, a little extra time with them, and continue to treat them like they're new, and not treat them like, well, you're old news now, you should have a hang of everything. So
Yeah. I think,
yeah.
Beverly, that's the benefit of that third factor, which was, giving someone the right equipment information to get the desired outcome, is it doesn't stop there. So again, this is when you design the strategy, is all these different touch points. And so a great organization is going to take those factors and they will tuck many initiatives under each. It's not just for the new employee. These are for, you've got to grow your leadership team. And so you've got to have a whole bunch of things. And when you're designing, so that avoids exactly what you're talking about. Same with relationships. You better have settings for all your relationship settings of how you're going to do that within your entire team. So
Yeah. We can't expect these relationships to just happen organically just because I see you every day or I talk to you every day. That you got to work at that. And that's not only in your organizational life. That's in your life period. You got to work at building those to make them successful. And to make them have some sort of value. So yeah. So tell me a little bit about your book, Eric, and where can we find it and what will we find in it?
So you can find it just about anywhere. I just finished my audiobook, so sorry, I couldn't get Morgan Freeman to do my voiceover. It was too expensive, so I had to do it myself. So you can go to Audible for the audio version. You can go to Amazon, of course. You can go to Barnes and Noble. You could go to Amplify Publishing, my publisher, who's really helped guide me through the process. So a whole variety of different channels, and we've been very pleased with the immediate impact, not only at some of the Barnes and Noble brick and mortars, but what's been real fun is some of the Barnes and Noble colleges, from the Harvards and Yales of the East to the Notre Dame's, U Chicago's of the Midwest, all the way to the Stanfords and UCLA's of the West Coast. A lot of these bookstores have embraced it. So it's really exciting. And hopefully they'll even go into a curriculum for some of these universities to develop future leaders.
Wonderful. Awesome. Eric Stone, thank you so much for your time today. And, I will put your marketing information in about your Clear Path Ventures, your company, and your book to help us actually go ahead and jumpstart our culture. It's dead, it's idle, it's just plugging along, so you might need to really just jumpstart that culture. So thank you so much for joining us today. And thank you for all the insightful tidbits and information that you've dropped. I'm sure everyone will find this interview very useful and helpful. So, and to my listeners out there, if you'd like to hear more on this topic and other topics on helping you create a culture where everything grows, just feel free to subscribe to my YouTube channel at Strategic HR Consultants, or you can find our show on Apple and Spotify. Team Building Cultures podcast is wherever you get your podcast. So thank you so much for joining us today. Eric, thank you so much for your time. And this has been great. Have a great day.
Thank you. Have a great day.
Thank you for tuning in to another episode of Team Building Cultures. We hope we have delivered helpful and enlightening information to help you create your dream team. Join us next time